fellow Movie Crusaders, and welcome to another episode of the Weekend Crusaders. My name's Sean Wasserkrug, and with me, as always, is Brian Michaels. And we are talking about 5 movies that came out during the weekend of August 20th through August 22nd. Happy early birthday to my best friend, Ryan Everson, who probably doesn't watch these episodes, but his birthday's the 22nd. Ryan, you're my best movie guy. I've known that guy since I was like 10 years old. So he's got seniority.
Brian,
that's why sometimes I call you Ryan accidentally. It's because you guys are just so close. Anyway, that's a way to start the show. but we're talking about 5 movies today, like always, and this is a list that I think going into this week, it was one of those. Granted, I think this is one of those weeks. It's one of the last weeks of summer, and you and I were looking at what was available, and you and I were just like, "There's not really anything on here I really like." And I'm like, "Yeah, there's something I remember from like my childhood, but even as a child, I knew the movie wasn't good. But like that's the only thing I want to talk about, like out of all these movies." And then I mentioned The Stinker. And I think we watched both my pick and the Stinker trailers back to back, and you're like, oh, we're totally picking this. And I was like, we don't have to. Like, I'll find something. No, we're picking these. And I'm like,
yeah, we're doing
okay. I was like, okay, and I was like, all right, fine, man. It's like you asked for it. Like, this is gonna be a rough week. So be prepared. If you guys like us talking about stinkers, this is gonna be a very, very stinker heavy week for you guys. So we're going to start with my movie. My movie is a film that I remember enjoying as a stupid child back in 1993. I think I was 8, which for the movie, could you at least say this, Brian, for that age range, this is like perfect film for an 8-year-old?
Maybe. I mean, at the times, with Three Ninjas and stuff, it was kind of the hot thing. But
Three Ninjas was the year prior, so yeah. It was right in that like hot sweet spot for an 8-year-old. I mean, it was like, hey, awesome, yeah, cool. Yeah, we're talking about Surf Ninjas. Surf Ninjas came out August 20th, 1993. Could not find the budget anywhere. I'm just gonna throw out a number: $5 million.
Maybe say more like $5.
Maybe $10 million. They got a big sponsorship from Sega. Weekend opening was $2 million. It was number 13 its opening weekend. It had a finished box office of $4.9 million. Yeah, I remember liking this film as a kid, but even growing up, knowing this movie was not good. And sometimes I have to get revenge on Brian for him making me watch certain films throughout the year, and Rockadoodle and Surf Ninjas were like my like getting Brian back kind of thing. Yeah, this movie definitely nostalgia goggles for, if you were under the age of 10 years old when this movie came out, because that's what this film is. Also, Member Berries from South Park. Remember Game Gear? Remember Sega? I remember, because that's what this movie is about. Clearly, this movie was made by Sega because they wanted to push the profits for the Sega Game Gear. Because I think without that thing in this film, I don't think this movie works. I think it falls apart even worse than what it already is. And it's all about, hey, Rob Schneider, do you want to be the funny guy? Like, do you want to be like the main funny guy in this movie? Cool. We're going to put you in this film with a bunch of people who are basically not funny for the most part. I'm gonna stop right there, and I'm gonna let Brian, who we're seeing this for the very first time, and you just had the trailer to go off, which the trailer is epic. The trailer is epic.
Well, this is a trailer that I will say it doesn't sell something that it's not, because I watched the trailer, I'm like, oh, this would absolutely be a stinker in any other week. But Sean said, no, it's my pick, and I'm like, okay.
No. What had happened is you said, I can't decide between Surf Ninjas and The Stinker on which one should be the stinker. I said, you know what? I'll just make Surf Ninjas my pick. And you're like, fuck, okay.
Yeah, because this, even from the trailer, you could tell this wasn't good. But man, it's bad. And if not for our stinker this week, which I will say this one looks a whole lot better by comparison. But that being said, this movie's not good. I mean, granted, I've seen it for the first time in my 40s instead of seeing it at 8 years old. I'm not the target audience for this movie at all. But it's just, I mean, even when you're making a movie for kids, it can make sense. It can be well made. You can at least have, good ninja fights and things like that. But I mean, first of all, you have ninjas walking around, I don't know what it's supposed to be, Malibu or some shit, San Diego.
I think it's like Malibu, Los Angeles.
But they're sneaking around in people's houses and on the beach and stuff, wearing this like black and blue camo because apparently that makes you camouflage. Later on, there's ninjas with tiger print, but it's not like they're in like, the tiger print kind of area. It's just weird prints they wanted to have. Because apparently ninjas are invisible though, because everybody walking by the street still doesn't see them because they're wearing their blue camo. You got that kind of thing going on. So the ninjas aren't believable. The fighting is ridiculous. Most people just doing like random flips for no reason. You can punch somebody and they'll do a random forward flip and land on their back. Every single person that gets hit in this movie. You got the kids, which I say that in quotes. Ernie Reyes Jr., who I only like because of The Rundown, where he's the little guy that beats the shit out of.
And for everyone who likes, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2: Secret of Thieves.
Yeah, he's the little guy who beats the crap out of Dwayne Johnson. He's kind of the main character of this movie. He's whatever. He's fine. He's a kid, and his little brother also fine. Then you have Rob Schneider, who I think was supposed to be a fellow high school student.
Because
he was at their school.
Ernie Reyes is 15. He's about to turn 16 in the movie. Schneider, I mean, he definitely goes to high school with them.
So he goes to high school. The man was 30 years old.
I don't know if they're in the same grade, though.
No, he's not going to be the first guy ever to play a high school student when he's well out of high school. But the dude is 30 years old. And just because he's short doesn't mean he can pass as a high school student. I'm sorry. But Rob Schneider is mostly just being Rob Schneider, which means usually not funny. Especially there's a random fourth wall break where he turns and talks to the camera in one scene for no reason.
He did that one time in the entire movie.
Yeah, it's like if it was an ongoing thing, maybe. But one time you're like, why did he just do that? And I even had to like rewatch it with subtitles trying to figure out what he even said during that fourth wall break. It's kind of pointless.
Wasn't it like an eye joke?
It was something where he made some really
it was an eye joke. Yeah.
Tone Loc is in this movie. Okay, Tone Loc, who is becoming a staple around here. He was in Adventures of Fort Fairlane. We didn't do Ace Ventura, did we?
No, I wanted to do Ace Ventura. Ace Ventura was for trivia. Same thing with Blank Check.
Okay.
But it was not on the show.
Tone Loc, I'm pretty sure in this movie plays the same character he was in Ace Ventura. He just like moved to California and got promoted to lieutenant instead of a cop because he's basically doing the same thing. Which there's a weird scene. In one scene, the kids are like sneaking off, and he goes to follow them to find out what they're getting up to. And like they're sneaking onto this boat. Now he doesn't know why they're going onto the boat. He's not like out to protect them or anything. He's just following the kids. He's pulling his gun as he's hunting down the kids. I'm like, why is he pulling his gun while he's just looking for the kids? So that was kind of weird to me.
It's too long. You don't need a reason.
I know. There's a lot of things that didn't make sense in this movie, but the main thing I had a problem with. There's weird things going on. I guess it's supposed to be supernatural or something. The Sega Game Gear that can apparently either predict or control the future in different scenes. Like the kid basically plays something and it makes shit happen, or in some cases it predicts it.
Hold on. You got to explain the basis of this shit before you just say random Game Gear. So Ernie Reyes' character, what's his character's name? Is it Johnny? Yeah, he's Johnny. Johnny is supposed to be like the future king. He's a prince. He's a future king, and he's supposed to be like this ultimate warrior. No, not the pro wrestler, but he's supposed to be this fantastic warrior, and he's just like a surfer kid. And then his little brother, Adam, he's supposed to be like this like soothsayer, or like has the ability to like manifest destiny or see the future, stuff like that. But for some reason, at least for like 3/4 of the way through the film, he can only see the future or control aspects of what's going to happen through the Game Gear, through a game that he just randomly has. Like that's the other thing too. It's like he's playing a normal game and then it just turns into Game of Life where he's basically playing the Surf Ninjas game and he's like controlling like his brother and he's controlling Zatch. He's controlling Zatch at one point, like when he like chose like not toothpicks, chopsticks. to use as a weapon, and like he chose an octopus to use as a weapon, but then he had to then grab the said octopus and use it for bonus points. But yes, it's literally a huge, like in terms of Brian, who loves calling out sponsorships in movies, this is like Krispy Kreme level sponsorship for Sega, trying to promote the Game Gear, where the Game Gear can literally control your destiny.
Get in the game. There you go.
Exactly. And then Rob Schneider's just Rob Schneider.
Yeah. But go ahead.
No. You were explaining, but I was like, okay, at least explain why the Game Gear is doing what it's doing.
No, I mean, but the movie. I mean, the plot is mostly nonsensical. You got Kelly Hu as the princess or whoever that he's supposed to eventually.
I didn't recognize it was Kelly Hu until I saw the cast at the end. I was like, oh wow, okay.
But she's like 5 years older than him, and I hope she's supposed to at least be out of high school, because at one point she's like trying to lure away these soldiers.
Something sexual.
She whispers something to them, and they'll like go walking after her into the bushes. And he's like, "What'd you say to her?" He's like, "You'll find out on our wedding night." I'm like, "Ew, this little teenage girl is whatever." So I don't know. Hopefully her character is supposed to be older too. I don't know. So I mean, it's kind of a nonsensical movie. There's such a shoestring plot, just enough to add a bunch of random ninja fights, which are, like I said, really badly done.
The choreography was done by Ernie Reyes Sr., who played his dad.
Ernie Reyes Sr., who was in the movie as
his uncle
guy. Yeah,
he plays his uncle, but it's his dad.
But I mean, I'm not sure if this movie knew how bad it was or not. Because I mean, there's points. Okay, like you know the Indiana Jones thing, where when they fly from location to location, you see the plane. There's like the blue line on the map. This one, you actually see somebody's hand pulling a ship across a map from one stop to another. Then it pulls the ship to the. I'm like. It seemed like it's something you do in a spoof movie, but they were doing like straight here. I'm like, why are they moving the little boat all across the map just to show us where they're going? It was just, so I'm not sure if it's like, trying to be in on the joke, like with a wink, or if it was just badly made. I don't know.
I think it's one of the clever not clever in terms of that it's a clever movie. I think it's one of those, like, it's the 90s and they were like, let's make a Three Ninjas type of film, a little bit older. And then we need to get profit off of Sega for this. So let's do it. Oh, that Ernie Reyes kid, he was great in Turtles. Let's try to make him a star in this. Oh, we need a villain. Someone funny. Oh, let's hire Leslie Nielsen. Who's so out of place in this film. If there was ever a miscast in this movie, it's Leslie Nielsen. And that's what I told Brian. I was like, wait till you get to Leslie Nielsen. Because I think I watched it the night before you did. And I was just like, oh, Brian, this is so bad. And you're like, great. And what were your thoughts on Leslie Nielsen as
again, that's another reason I'm like, is this supposed to be a spoof movie? Because he was, Leslie Nielsen has done serious roles. Like before he did like The Naked Gun and stuff, he was in like Forbidden Planet and serious movies. And even this one's supposed to be a comedy, but it wasn't really that kind of spoof kind of Leslie Nielsen comedy. But when he showed up, he totally was. He was like just playing everything over the top and doing weird things with the phone. And it's like, so he was kind of in a whole different movie, which he's doing what they hired him to do. It just didn't match with the rest of the movie.
Yeah. He's still playing like Frank Drebin.
Yeah. Frank Drebin. Yeah.
Yeah. As like a bad guy, or Dracula from Dracula Dead and Loving It. He's still in that zone.
Yeah.
For this movie.
So he kind of didn't fit in with the rest of the movie. And especially at the end when they just kind of like defeat him like fairly easily, thanks to the Sega Game Gear, of course.
Throwing him in the water.
Yeah.
But even then, like, didn't he just fall in on his own, or did he get kicked?
I don't even remember.
I can't remember.
But I mean, again, we saw a worse movie. Just in the past week, we've seen a couple worse movies, actually, which made this one look better by comparison. But any other week, this would definitely be a stinker. I also do want to call out one moment. They have like their Dalai Lama kind of character who they name Baba Ram for the sole purpose of saying, "Ooh, we can have him sing this song, ba 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 Ram," in the movie, which is stupid enough. But then they do a whole ending song where everybody in town is singing it. Like, oh my god!
And then he's got the super high pitch voice as he's singing it too. And then I mean, I thought the one part you're gonna attack viciously is where they try to rally like the freedom fighters, and it's all about them just like surf dancing down the street, and everyone's like, I'm gonna go hang out with the guy. Like, you realize you're gonna go die, right?
Yeah, they were dancing and singing as they go down the street, and then for reasons I'm still not sure of, they decided they had to teach all of them to surf.
because they had to get around the island because they were all on the one side of the island that all the guns were pointing at. So their thought process was to surf around an island to enter the back end where no one was.
That's not how surfing works. It pushes you back in towards the coast.
Just saying that was the thought process. That was the whole point. Was that they were going to like the islands here, they're here. Was to surf around the back end and then enter from the back.
Yeah, that's how surfing works. Okay,
that's exactly what it was supposed to be. But yeah, I can't defend this movie, and I wasn't gonna defend this movie. But it was one of those like as I was watching it, I was kind of just happy and at peace knowing that Brian had to watch this, knowing the crap that he's had to put me through. Granted, I didn't feel this way about Rockadoodle. But then how he acted with Rockadoodle, I was like, oh, I'm gonna enjoy Surf Ninjas then.
I'm gonna rethink all my future picks and maybe throw.
Oh, don't make it so spiteful. That'll just ruin the show. I literally picked Surf Ninjas because you basically forced me to because you couldn't decide between this and the Stinker.
And you couldn't figure out anything else you wanted. So.
Because there was nothing really else that came out this weekend that I liked. Yeah, Surf Ninjas. If you want to watch them mindlessly, I will admit Rob Schneider. I like Rob Schneider. I don't like all of his movies. Granted, I like him.
I will say this: Rob Schneider is an actor who Rob Schneider has the career that Adam Sandler should have, because Adam Sandler, like Rob Schneider, is good in small doses. You put him in a small supporting role, he can be funny. But you give Rob Schneider a whole movie, and you're like, okay, I don't need this much Rob Schneider.
I will die on this hill. I love Hot Chick. I think Hot Chick is fucking great with Anna Faris and Rachel McAdams. I love Hot Chick, and I will die on that mountain.
Okay.
Continue what you're going to say.
Oh, no, that's all I was going to say is that this movie, I think, had if you're going to have Rob Schneider in your movie, this movie had the perfect amount of him. It didn't go too much of him. You know?
I still think he had the funniest line in the movie, which was the money can't buy knives scene. That movie, that was still funny. I don't know why that part was funny, but that part was funny to me. Especially when Tone Loc completed it at the end of the joke. But yeah, Tone Loc's character really just oh, I'm just gonna come with you. Screw my job.
The thing with Tone Loc basically had 2 hits in 1990, 91.
You Bebe's Kids?
No, I meant music wise.
Oh, okay.
He had 2 hit songs in 90 or 91. Maybe 89. I don't know, somewhere around there. And then he decided to do acting, and like I said, he had some small roles in Ford Fairlane and Ace Ventura and this. And I guess they just figured, you know what, maybe we can bring in some people who like his music. I don't know. Then he's probably cheap, so they could have him in this movie. It wouldn't cost him much, but he was kind of pointless.
No, it's just his whole character made no sense.
Yeah,
he threw his whole life away to go follow these kids because it was his destiny, or his reason was because he hasn't had a vacation in 17 months.
The same kids he's drawing a gun on as he follows them onto a boat.
Exactly. Surf Ninjas. If you guys have seen it, you know exactly what we're talking about. You're probably either going to be like, how dare you, Surf Ninjas is great, or you're like, yeah, you're right, Surf Ninjas is garbage.
I think anyone who thinks that way, I think would have to at least admit that objectively it's bad. They might have fond memories of it. They might enjoy it for nostalgic reasons.
They probably haven't watched it since 93, 94. Yeah. But yeah. I don't believe it's on anything.
It's not officially available. The entire movie is on YouTube, uploaded by somebody, and it's
oh yeah, that's right.
And it's pretty good quality. It's like somebody just took the DVD and put it online, but you can watch it on YouTube if you really want.
We totally did watch it on YouTube. I remember that now. Yeah. But yeah, we're gonna move on to our next pick, and this is Brian's pick. And I remember when Brian picked this movie, I was like, ugh, because I remember watching it in theaters when it came out. And I was like, I am not about this movie. I didn't it wasn't I hated it. It was just kind of it's fine. I don't love it. I don't like it. But it's not bad. I just don't care for it. And so he picked this, and I was like, oh man, I gotta watch this again. And then Brian brought up a very, very valuable point. He goes, do you not like it because it's not a good movie, or did you not like it back then because of an actress in the film? And so it made me think about it. And I was like, all right, well, I don't feel that way about said actress anymore. So I'm going to rewatch this with fresh eyes. And Brian was right. Yeah, it was all about the actress at the time. And I apologize. So we're talking about Brian's movie. It is the 2015 action comedy American Ultra. American Ultra came out August 21st, 2015. Had a budget of $28 million. Had a weekend opening of $5.45 million. It was number 6 its opening weekend behind Straight Outta Compton in its second week, Mission Impossible Rogue Nation in its fourth week, Sinister 2, I forgot that there was a sequel to that, in its first week, Hitman Agent 47 in its first week, and The Man from U.N.C.L.E. in its second week. Had a finished box office of $27.26 million, $14.44 million domestic, and $12.8 million international. Yeah, I think like most people, we all hate watched Kristen Stewart. Is it Kristen or Kirsten? It's Kristen.
Kristen
Stewart. Kristen Stewart and Pattinson because of Twilight. Anything they did outside of Twilight, I mean, we just, now granted we didn't like Twilight, but because they were Twilight, we were just like, oh, fuck these two. And I think maybe that was why I felt that way. Plus, I wasn't the biggest Eisenberg fan either. So it was like you put both of those two together, and I'm just like, it's fine. But now I don't have a problem with Stewart. I think she's actually become a fantastic actress. Eisenberg, I can still kind of take him or leave him. Zombieland obviously helped with a lot of that. I mean, granted, he had done Zombieland before this film, but he was, he fucking Lex Luthor and Social Network and stuff like that. I was not way crazy about him, man. But watching this again, I forgot all the rest of the cast of this film. I mean, you got Tony Hale, Connie Britton, Walton Goggins, Topher Grace, John Leguizamo, and I was like, as I was watching, I was like, why didn't I like this movie again? And yeah, by the end of it, I quite enjoyed it. But this is your pick, so please take it away, American Ultra.
Yeah, so American Ultra, basic plot of the movie. There's this guy who lives with his girlfriend, and he's just works a convenience store. Very mundane life. He has panic attacks anytime he tries to leave town. For some reason, he can't bring himself to leave town. And then basically you find out Connie Britton is this person who heads up this project. She finds out that basically they're coming to kill him because it turns out he's like this asset. He's someone they basically trained to be this. He's
a Jason Bourne.
Yeah, he's a Jason Bourne kind of character. So she shows up, says some sort of passphrase that basically sets him off into remembering his former life, or at least he remembers his skills. He doesn't actually remember his whole former life, but he remembers his skills. And so basically people come to kill him. He's fighting them off. They send more people. He fights back. Kristen Stewart gets pulled into the mix in ways that we won't go into just for spoiler reasons.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this is a movie that at the time I thought looked good, but even I went into it thinking it's Kristen Stewart and Jesse Eisenberg. Now, Jesse Eisenberg obviously had done Social Network at this point, which I think he does an excellent job in. But that's because the character is supposed to be kind of an unlikable douchebag.
Yeah.
He had done other movies too, where again he might have done a good job in them, but he always kind of picks those characters unlikable douchebags.
Now You See Me, and
even in Zombieland, he's a little. He's supposed to be kind of grating.
Yeah.
Even though he's kind of the hero of the movie. Now I don't hate him. And Kristen Stewart, obviously, I liked the first time I ever saw her in Panic Room and things like that. But once she did Twilight, it's like you said, I think people just got sick of hearing about Twilight. You see these movies that aren't very good, super successful, and you're like, oh, so you kind of there's this backlash against them. So I went and saw this, with an open mind though, because it's like, the movie looks good, and I just enjoyed the hell out of this movie. This is a movie, I think I said in my original review, it feels like it's the kind of movie that feels like it's based on a graphic novel. It's not. It's a completely original thing, written by Max Landis, by the way, who did Chronicle. He wrote, we were just talking about him the other day. Max Landis wrote also.
I don't know who you're talking about.
He's making for good TV. Mr. Right.
Oh, Mr. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And Chronicle,
a couple others. I actually like Max Landis a lot for this. Most of the stuff.
And if anyone who's a pro wrestling fan, and you've watched this, which is shocking because I know you're not a wrestling guy. If you guys have never seen Wrestling Isn't Wrestling, it's on YouTube. Max Landis wrote this. There's some not sneak peek, but there's some cameos of some name actors in it. It's 20-25 minutes tops. Fantastic. But anyway, continue. Wrestling Isn't Wrestling.
Yeah. So it's Max Landis, of course, the son of John Landis, who we'll talk about later. But he wrote it. It's directed by the guy, I won't even try to pronounce the name, but it's directed by a guy who did another very underrated film, I think, called Project X. It's a great one night teen party movie, which if you haven't seen that, it's a ton of fun. But yeah, this is a movie where the two of them, I won't even say I really like their characters. I mean, they're the central characters of the movie, but there's nothing especially likable, but nothing dislikable about them either. But the action is great, the comedy is great, the dialogue is very funny. The situations that happen, I think, are really good. I love, like you said, this whole supporting cast from Leguizamo and Topher Grace, and Walton Goggins, all these people show up. It's just a really entertaining movie. Like I said, it kind of feels like a graphic novel feel to it, kind of in the style of the violence and the action that happens in it. It's got a great open ending that obviously is not going to have a sequel, but they very well could have. But yes, I mean, this is one that I liked the first time I saw it, and actually rewatching it now, I actually liked it even more than I did the first time, I think.
Yeah, this, to me, the best way to describe this movie is Jason Bourne stoner movie. Yeah. That's basically what it is, Jason Bourne stoner. Because he's a Jason Bourne type. He has basically had his mind erased, and then he's given, like you said, Connie Britton shows up because he gets a death order put on him because he keeps trying to leave the town that he's supposed to be in. Not because he's trying to run away, it's because he's trying to take Kristen Stewart's character out on like a vacation because he wants to propose because he loves her and stuff like that. And he's just trying to be a good boyfriend. But obviously, like, he goes into panic attacks and throwing up and stuff because like some neurological thing that they put in him that kind of basically makes him freak out, kind of like a invisible dog collar, like on when they try to leave the yard. It's basically the same thing for him. But because he keeps trying to leave, Topher Grace's character, who's trying to move up the ranks, basically puts a kill order out on him because he has his own special unit of special, brainwash people. And then it's just, it's him kind of just reacting to everything happening. He doesn't know how he's able to do the things he does, kind of like Matt Damon and Bourne. And he doesn't understand what's going on. And then you got Kristen Stewart's character, who, Phoebe is her name. I think incredibly likable character. I mean, there's nothing that Kristen Stewart does wrong in this film. I think she's a very likable character. I understand why Mike, played by Jesse Eisenberg, loves her, because she's supportive, and even when he fails at stuff, because he is basically playing a stoner who's content with his life, there's that great moment, I think when they're hanging out in the car and they're talking about the car and the tree. Beautiful scene that they had right there, and then it comes back around at the end of the movie as well. And then of course, just like a couple weeks ago with One Crazy Summer, he has this this comic.
He's a cartoonist, yeah.
Is it Atomic? It's Atomic Ape.
Apollo Ape, I believe.
It's either Apollo or Atomic Ape or something like that, which kind of pops in here and there, But yeah, it's a great supporting cast, fun action. We get kind of the it's weird that this has kind of become a thing now. The warehouse grocery store third act battle sequence. I mean, we had it with Equalizer, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Now this movie where apparently you do the third act inside of a store and you use everything inside of it and it works. It's fun. Heck, Zombieland did it, but that was more in the second act than anything else.
Grosse Point Blank as well.
Grosse Point Blank. I never realized this was a trope.
It is Apollo 8, by the way. Apollo
8. But yeah, it's written really well. Obviously, Max Landis has written it, and it's acted really well. Topher Grace is playing, the dickhead version of himself and everything that he usually does for the most part, unless he's trying to be like a Win-A-Date and Tad Hamilton character where you're supposed to actually like him. Connie Britton, I've always liked Connie Britton. I've always been a fan of her, so anytime she gets to be in a movie, I'm excited. And of course, John Leguizamo is kind of playing it a little too over the top, but he does have funny lines, funny little moments in his small role. Tony Hale is basically playing Tony Hale. If you've seen him in anything that's not Arrested Development, he's basically playing that same kind of character. But yeah, I mean, and then Walton Goggins is playing this crazy laughing character, and just because Walton Goggins is in it, I immediately liked it that much more because I forgot he was in this movie.
He's not playing straight evil. He's almost childlike at times. It's
he's very simple.
Yeah,
and it's not like he's evil to be evil. He's programmed to do this job, and at the end of the movie, he kind of starts to figure things out, and you kind of realize that he doesn't want to do the things he's doing because he's evil. He's doing the things he's doing because it's what he's told to do.
Right.
Like a lot of the people are. But no, it's a fun kind of crazy movie, and that's, like I said, the main problem is that if you hate on Kristen Stewart because of Twilight, you're not going to give it a shot. Eisenberg, yeah, he's this is nothing against him as a person, but his performances, he likes to pick roles where he's kind of an unlikable character. And in this movie, super nice guy. Like, he seems like a super nice guy the whole time, except he's a stoner. But there's nothing wrong with that. It's just everyone kind of treats him like he's like this, horrible person because he's a stoner in this movie, which he's the nicest guy in the film as well. But I mean, Eisenberg, no one liked him as Lex Luthor. Obviously he, in Social Network, he, like you said, he plays a prick. And then everything else he's in, he kind of just plays like this pompous jackass. So it's kind of hard to really want to go see a movie with him in it. And then you add Kristen Stewart right around the end of Twilight. And it's like, I'm sorry, no one wants to see this shit. But now it's kind of, I feel like this could be a cult classic if people were to go back to it and revisit this, because it actually is a really well done and fun film. Like you said, open-ended. And I really liked the, I don't know why, but I really liked when they were in Leguizamo's, was it his basement? With all the
black light?
The black lighting. I don't know why that worked for me. I wish they would have done a bigger fight scene in there, because like that whole section, I was like, this is really cool. I like it. But yeah, this is one of those that Brian made me revisit. I mean, it technically was like revisited for me, even though it was Brian's pick, because it was one of those like, I don't remember liking this film, I don't remember enjoying it, and then being turned completely around and upping it up a whole full star on my Letterboxd, because I had a blast watching it. I had a lot of fun. So thank you, Brian, for making me go back and rewatch this.
Thank you for making me watch Surf. No, wait, never mind.
You're welcome. You are so welcome for that. Wasu, dude. But come on, you don't tell me you didn't want to chant with them when they were saying that in Surf Ninjas?
No.
What? You're no fun. Anyway, American Ultra, it's on Netflix, right? Yeah, Netflix. So if you guys have not seen American Ultra because of who stars in it, or if maybe you were like me, which at the time you were not a fan of it because of those performers, give it a rewatch, give it a shot. I guarantee you're going to think about it differently than you did back then. Or if you didn't give it a shot because of those two back then, watch it now, because I think everyone for the most part likes Kristen Stewart now. I don't think anyone has any issues with her unless they're still really holding on to that grudge over Twilight. And Eisenberg, I think he's kind of been removed from the dickhead roles for a while. I mean, he's still Lex Luthor, but still. Which even then, I think a lot of people have kind of... Jared Leto kind of took over the heat.
Yeah, he was not the worst part of those movies.
No, yeah, Jared Leto took over the Eisenberg heat with Suicide Squad. But yeah, check that out. It's on Netflix. Next, we are going to our Revisited. This is a film that is considered a classic. When people talk about horror films, this movie tends to always get brought up in some part of the conversation, much like The Thing was a couple weeks back, or actually a couple months back, when we did that. I think that was during the Lost episode.
That was our last episode.
Yeah. But yeah, this is one of those films that is considered an all-time classic. Now, granted, I had never seen the movie from beginning to end. I've seen scenes of the movie, because you can't go through life, especially as a movie file like we are, or cinephile, and not have seen scenes from this film. It's just, if you made it through life being a cinephile and not seen scenes from this movie, I don't know how you managed to do it, because these always pop up. But we are talking about the horror classic, American Werewolf in London. American Werewolf in London. Wasn't the remake in Paris?
Yes.
Okay, because
it was a remake. It was a sequel, basically.
Yeah, I was like, I kept wanting to say Paris. I'm like, that's not right. Paris was the one with was it Everett Scott?
Tom Everett Scott.
Yeah, I was like, I thought there was another one. I saw that one. It's not good. But anyway, American Werewolf in London came out August 21st, 1981, had a budget of $5.8 million, had a weekend opening of $3.78 million. It was number one its opening weekend. It's the only weekend on record I could find for the film, so I don't know how long it stayed at number one or for how long it was in theaters, but that was the only weekend I could find. It was number one that weekend. It had a finished box office of $30.56 million domestic, and $104,086 international, which is weird because it's based in London. Anyway, so yeah, American Wolf in London.
Directed by John Landis.
Yes,
Max
Landis, who, Max Landis' dad, who, as we were looking through this, apparently Max Landis' writing a screenplay, I guess, of a remake of this.
That's what I hear, but it's been
So-
supposedly for a while now. It's one of those things I don't know if it'll actually happen or not.
I don't know, but apparently, according to his IMDb, he is writing a screenplay for, I'm assuming, the remake of this film. And I kind of hope that happens because I'm sorry, I don't get why this movie's a classic. This is another one of those movies where I feel like I'm not in on the joke. Kind of like Monty Python, where everyone thinks it's funny and I'm just watching it and I'm just like, I don't understand the humor. This is just not funny to me. Because American Werewolf in London is a horror comedy. And even, like, I told you that. I was like, I don't find the jokes funny. And you're like, is it supposed to be a comedy? And you go to IMDb and it literally says comedy first, horror second. And I'm like, it's not funny. It's just kind of weird and off-putting.
There's a few like comic moments or lines to it, but overall, I don't even see how it's classified as a comedy. And you're right. I mean, it's classified that way. And people, if you look on like the list of the best horror comedies, people put it on there. But there's not that much comedy in there, and what there is of it isn't that funny. Yeah,
it's just like you got some dialogue, there, but then there's just some weird, like, he has this like nightmare where like these Nazi werewolves just come into a random house. I'm assuming it's his family, and they start killing everybody and lighting everything on fire. And I'm just like, I don't get why this is in the movie. Like, this is just a weird ass scene. It just feels out of place. It's like, obviously he's dreaming. I guess it's supposed to be like his psyche breaking because he's becoming a werewolf. I don't fucking know. And then there's just like some weird music choices in the film, and then the abrupt ending as well. The one part I actually did like, outside of the werewolf transformation, because that's the iconic scenes we've all seen, because it was done incredibly well, his transformation into a werewolf. I actually really liked that his best friend kept coming back, and each time he was coming back, he was degrading more and more and more. I enjoyed those conversations, and I liked that aspect of the film. Everything else, though, I was just kind of on. I mean, and you can tell that the budget, obviously it's $5.8 million, because rarely you got a full visual of the werewolf. It was always like the the upper part, like you could tell like they're just holding it off screen and doing this into the camera. But yeah, Brian, continue.
You actually hit on basically I agree on everything you said, because I had like a list of a couple notes I want to talk about, and you've kind of covered them all. But I mean, there's revisit movies that we revisit to see if they're as good as you remember. There's revisit movies we look to see if they're as bad as I remember. This one I originally thought was meh, and I revisited and found out, yeah, I still think it's very eh. Because I mean, I've obviously seen far worse movies. I mean, this week alone I've seen several, but I don't think it's that good. It's one of those, like you said, I don't understand this cult following that it has that just loves this movie because. Well, first of all, I don't think there's really been a great werewolf movie made. I mean, there's some that have been okay, but I've not really loved.
Don't make me pull up a list, because I fucking will. But yeah, I'm like ones are probably like obviously Wolf with Jack Nicholson and Michelle Pfeiffer, but I don't remember that being great. I remember just being like the name.
It was a kind of interesting, different tone for a werewolf movie.
And Wolfman with Benicio and Hopkins, I think, had the potential to be good, but just was really boring.
Well, that's just I'm talking about. Even the ones that have potential, or even ones that were, not bad. There hasn't been a great one yet that I think of, that I can think of anyway.
Well, Werewolves Within.
Werewolves Within, it's close. Even that's not great. I mean, I enjoyed that a lot, but I wouldn't call it great. You have Cursed with Jesse Eisenberg. We just talked about him, but again, it's good, not great. But this movie, it's like I said, you kind of already touched everything. That they clearly loved what they did with the transformation scene, the effects they did there, and that's what everybody talks about. I think that's why people love this movie, because they remember that scene. That's the one scene you always see when they talk about this movie, and especially for the time. And it looks a little bit silly at points, but at the time, it was groundbreaking. It was really well done. You can tell they loved their effects, because that scene, I swear, they took that transformation off like 10 minutes. I swear, it just took forever. But then the rest of the movie, you really don't see anything. It's like whenever you see him, it's like a jump scare, like a quick flash of the wolf's face, like really close to the camera. It's basically all you see of the wolf after that point. So it's like they clearly had no budget left for effects anywhere else in the movie. What I really did like, and you kind of touched on it too, was the best friend played by Griffin Dunn. I thought the effects on him.
You remind me of Dudley Moore.
I could see that. The makeup and stuff they did on him, I thought was excellent. Especially the first time they show him when he after he'd been attacked. Yeah, and he had like the claw marks across his face, and it was hanging open. And I thought, especially for the time, that was awesomely done. And then, like I said, the next time you see him, he's a little more decomposed, and later on you see him, he's even more decomposed.
He's
we're actually using a puppet at some point.
Yeah,
basically. I thought I really enjoyed the way those effects were done, and I really, like you said, I like those conversations because you're like, is he really seeing them? Is this all in his head? Nobody really knows, but I still enjoyed that, whether it was with himself or with an actual friend. I enjoyed those conversations he had with him. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those movies where, like, for the first hour, you don't even see this werewolf. This transformation we're talking about takes place an hour into an hour and 37-minute movie. So by that point, you're already getting like, okay, can we get on with this movie? It's like he's having this great relationship with this nurse. That's great. Who falls in love with him for reasons we don't know. But it's like we need to move on with the plot of the movie, and then they do it, and then the movie just kind of ends so anticlimactically. It's just like
with a weird song choice to end the credits.
Well, that's because their thing is, let's have every song in the movie is gonna have the word moon in it. Ooh, aren't we clever? We have Blue Moon and Moon Dance and all. And it's just like we get the joke, but then, like you said, it's this big emotional scene at the end. Well, it's not even that emotional. It's like
no, it's not emotional at all.
It's like it suddenly ends. He's suddenly dead, which I'm going to spoil a movie that's 40 years old or whatever it is. But he suddenly gets shot and killed. She's standing there crying, and then they go into this song. It's
just like the tone is completely off from this moment. It's like, am I supposed to think this is funny? Because that's the part. It's like the music's making me think like, oh, this is cutesy and zany, and it's like, no, she like loved this guy, and
if the movie ended on some kind of comedic moment or something, fine, but it didn't. It tried to end dramatically, and then you completely undermine it that moment.
Yeah, it's just the tone.
And I think that's the biggest problem with the movie is it's trying. If they market it as a comedy horror, that's great. But like I said, there's not enough comedy for it to be a horror comedy. But there's too much for it to be a straight horror because, like you said, it has this weird tone to it. So, I mean, I don't hate this movie, but I'm baffled by it being praised as this classic. Especially unless you're just talking about the effects for the time.
Especially at the beginning when they're walking and you're like, okay, we're developing these two characters. And then they go into that bar and it's just awkward the whole time, like the townspeople. And you're thinking like, okay, well, these are the characters we're probably going to be dealing with throughout the rest of the film. But no, they're just that initial opening scene. And then they leave and, we get the werewolf attack. And then it's just like, oh, we're just going to abandon the rest of these people that we've been kind of getting some character development of. Like when they leave the bar.
So the doctor revisits and runs into a couple of them for like 5 minutes. That's
it's just like, it's just like, what's the point of this? And I did look it up. Now, I know some people are going, no, blah, blah, blah was a great film. There are great movies with werewolves in them, but where the werewolf is the primary focus of the film, no, there is not a good one. There's okay ones like the Underworld franchise and stuff like that, but like there are other great films that like Cabin in the Woods has a werewolf in it, and
barely. Okay, yeah, barely, yeah.
Yeah, but I was gonna say that's not a werewolf movie. Like technically, What We Do in the Shadows has werewolves in it. And stuff like that. But if we're talking about like a werewolf focused, like Trick or Treat has werewolves in it in a scene. If we're talking about a werewolf focused movie, you are right. There is not a good werewolf movie. Like technically, Prisoners of Azkaban, Harry Potter 3, which is the best Harry Potter film, has a werewolf in it.
Straight werewolf movies, you got like the Wolfman movies, the old stuff, old and new. You got the Howling, you got Bad Moon Rising, you got Silver Bullet, but none of these are they go from awful to not bad.
Yeah, Ginger Snaps.
Yeah.
It's like, nah. Anyway, this is on Prime. This is definitely a like Brian said with Revisited. Sometimes it's something that we're trying to give a second chance. Sometimes it's trying to remember if we liked it as much as we did, or it's something like me, like with this and The Thing, where it's like, oh, this is considered a classic. I've never checked it out. We should see if this is really as good as everyone says it is. And this is one of those that Brian and I just cannot figure out why there's so much love for this film. Yeah. Like I said, I hope Max Landis gets a shot to do the new one, because I would love to see what his version of it is, because I feel like it'll be better than this. And
if he does, I think that we will enjoy it. I think that all the people who love the original will be like, "Oh, this is blasphemy! It's nowhere near as good as the original."
Yeah. it'll be the worst thing ever for them, and we'll be like, yay. But anyway, it's on Prime. You guys can check it out if you guys want. We probably will never check this out again unless we are forced to. But next, we're going to go to our featured film. This is one of those movies, once again, where Brian and I think we're like two people out of like a very small few that actually really enjoy this film. This is not considered a good film by many people, but for some reason, Brian and I really like this movie. So naturally, when it popped up, we were like, "This is totally our feature film," because we both enjoy this film a lot. It's not a great film. We're not saying it's a great film by any means, but we enjoy this film, and we're talking about the 2004 buddy comedy road trip, Without a Paddle. Without a Paddle came out August 20th, 2004, had a budget of $19 million, had a weekend opening of $13.5 million. It was number 2 its opening weekend behind Exorcist at the beginning in its first week, and had a finished box office of $73 million, $58.16 million domestic, and $14.85 million international. Obviously, anyone who's just watched this show knows that we both love Seth Green, whether it's in movies or TV or even when he does Robot Chicken. We all like Seth Green. I love Matthew Lillard, and I think we're both able to handle Dax Shepard for the most part. I like him in some things. I think he's a little over the top in other things. I think he's more over the top in this one than I would. I think he needed to tone it down a little bit in this one. But Without a Paddle is fun. It's fun. It's dumb, but it's fun. There's some great jokes in here. The friendship between the 3 characters, I think, is believable. And I feel like they all 3 have great comedic timing and energy with each other that makes them feel like they're actually really friends. I think if there is a weak spot in the film, it's Ethan
Suplee.
Yeah, just because he literally just says, "How do you like me now?" like 1,000 times in the film. And it's just like, oh God, you gotta get this guy to do dialogue. But I enjoy this film, Brian. What are your thoughts? I know you like it, but go ahead.
Well, this is a movie I like. I don't. Every time I think I like it more than I do, because I'm like, oh yeah, I really love that movie. And I watch it, I'm like, this is good. I enjoy it. I wouldn't say like I love the movie, because it's like you said, there are parts about it, especially the 3 friends. Like you said, I like all 3 of those actors. Dax Shepard can be a bit much in certain roles, but yeah, other times he's fine. I would recommend Let's Go to Prison. Fun movie. But the 3 of them, I agree. I think their relationship is totally believable. It's like there are a lot of like real heartfelt moments in addition to the over the top comedy moments to it. Especially when we're discussing the loss of their friend, which is kind of the what causes them to go on this whole adventure in the first place. Yeah. So it's kind of the catalyst for the whole movie. Which the movie is essentially, what if we did Deliverance, but a comedy version of it? That's the basic premise of this movie. Because there's 3 of these guys, going down river and encountering all this, wackiness. You have the 2 rednecks who are they keep running into, who are after them. Although in this case, it's because they burned up their field of weed or whatever it was. Then you have a whole subplot with DB Cooper, and his money.
I don't want to call it the subplot. That's literally the driving force.
Well, it is, but I mean when
it's the MacGuffin of the film, basically.
Yeah, when Burt Reynolds shows up in the movie, it's kind of I was kind of like whatever with Burt Reynolds, but the 3 of them, I think that the relationship between them is what works best. I think that not every individual scene and bit hits. I mean, some where you're kind of like, okay, this is all right, move on. But then sometimes there's other times where it's laugh out loud funny. And so do I think it worked for the most part? Absolutely. I think that a lot of people, I don't think, give it enough credit. I think it's a lot of fun. I'm not going to call it like one of my favorite comedies, of all time or anything, but it's a lot of fun. I do think that this wouldn't get made, at least not as it is today, because there's a lot of politically incorrect humor in this movie. I mean, it'd be called homophobic just for not wanting to rub up against each other, when they're all naked in the woods.
I honestly, though, I every time I hear bump and grind, that is the first thing I think about is this movie.
Well, there's a lot of funny scenes in this movie. I'm saying if this movie came out today, people would criticize it to death. It's like, humor's humor. I don't care if it's politically correct. It's a joke. Take it for what it is, folks. But that's just me. It's like the ending's a little bit cheesy with the whole, the real.
I've learned something today.
The real treasure was being alive, and it's like, okay, whatever, just take the money. We don't care about that. We don't care about the lesson. This isn't, the more you know or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, like I said, for the most part, the humor works for me. There was a very dated Matrix joke in it.
Oh yeah,
which
well,
had actually already been done 4 years earlier. The exact same joke with Scary Movie did the whole thing with his my back, But it's
yeah. I mean, but it was also, I think, only a year removed from the final film, though. So
yeah, I suppose.
it,
But
it's
by then, this Matrix, the whole bending back bullet time spoof had been done in 30 other places, and so I was kind of like, okay, whatever. But that was just an example of, like I said, not every joke hits, but for the most part, I enjoyed it.
yeah. There is some great scenes in there. I mean, not until he puts Jabba back in his hut is a great line. The whole bear scene is great. The the tree scene, with the two females. I think that whole part works. Like I said, Matthew Lillard and Seth Green obviously are hilarious in their own right, and I think they work well together. If there is a weak point, it obviously is Dax Shepard, because his character is very one note in a way, where he's like, "Oh, I learned this by doing this, and it's all full of shit." And it just kind of gets annoying after a while.
But even him, I actually found most of his stuff funny.
But it does flow with those two. Had it just been Dax Shepard on his own, it would not be funny. But it works, especially the fishing trick, figure eight, and they got used to it and all that kind of crap with the whole fish thing. Good music as well, solid music. But like you said, heart in the film as well, because you got to remember the whole point of this journey is that they're doing this for their friend, their fourth member of their group who had passed away, and they're doing this trip because this is the trip that he wanted them to all go on, I guess, a year prior. And there's that one moment where they're running through the pot fields, and Matthew Lillard sees his younger friend, the younger version of his friend, which I thought, it's considered kind of a weird moment, but I think it works. And then you got, them in the cave with DB Cooper. I think that was a solid moment as well, as it all kind of comes full circle for him.
Well, he was DB Cooper's partner. He wasn't DB Cooper.
No. I'm talking about when they actually find DB Cooper.
Oh, okay.
And they decide that they leave their trinkets there and stuff like that. I'm talking about that scene.
Okay.
But no, like, it's a solid comedy, especially in the 2000s. I mean, it's right up there with, like, your Euro trips and your American Pies and stuff like that. It doesn't go that far over the risque like those ones do. But I think in terms of a buddy comedy, buddy road trip, adventure kind of thing, I think it works really well. It does have a deliverance joke in it as well. When they get to the town, and he's like, "Where are we? It looks like we're on Bumfuck. You got a purred mouth," kind of that, which I love. I love that scene.
Well, and then in that scene, like, the cop is overly aggressive for no reason, and then
Dax
is
it's like,
being extra asshole to him, and it's like, okay, we're playing.
It's more or less they were just like, we need to solidify the cop because we know he's gonna come back around. Whereas, like, if he wasn't doing that, then we would have forgotten about him completely. So when he shows up here, we're like, oh, that guy, kind of thing. But yeah, like, it's not a great film, but it's a solid film. It's one of those, like, if you're flipping through the channels and you go like TBS or something like that, and it's on, like, oh yeah, Without a Paddle, cool. But it's not something that, like, for the most part, if I'm looking through a list of movies of what I want to watch tonight and I see Without a Paddle, I'm very, very rarely am I going, oh, we're totally watching this tonight, kind of thing. But I mean, like I say, if it's on TV,
which is why I like this show, because it makes me rewatch things.
Exactly, because I was like, I cannot remember the last time I sat down and watched it from beginning to end. Usually, I catch it around the bear scene or something like that. But it's not on anything currently right now, is it?
No, not for free.
I was like, yeah, because I had the Blu-ray, so that's why I watched it. But yeah, it's like I said, if you're looking for a funny road trip comedy with three best friends, you can't go wrong with this. Or you could watch Road Trip, which I think Road Trip's a hell of a lot funnier, but that's a whole other kind of film. But yeah, next we're going to The Stinker. We've been teasing this film throughout the entire episode. This got dubbed Stinker over Surf Ninjas for good reasons. This is a film. Backstory, real quick. This is a film we went through, and we're trying to think of the Stinker of the week. And Brian didn't know Surf Ninjas at the time, and he didn't know this movie. So he's naming all these other movies, and I'm like, oh God, this film. And he goes, what is that? I go, you don't know what this is? He goes, no.
It's like, this one?
Yeah, you didn't know it off the top of the
You
head.
got the story wrong, dude. I've always known what this movie is. I've never seen
No,
it.
that's why we had to get the trailer, because you didn't know this was a movie.
No, I said I want to watch the trailer because I'm like, I think this is going to be a great. So
I
I
thought
was
you
showing
didn't
you the
know.
trailer.
I thought I could have sworn you didn't know the movie.
No. See, well, Surf Ninjas, I knew like the cover art of the box, but I'd never seen it, so that's why I watched the trailer for that one. I didn't know much about it besides the cover art. This one, I knew what it was. I'd never seen it, but I absolutely knew it was what it was, and I was like, I'm pretty sure it's horrible. And so we watched the trailer, and we're like, oh yeah, it looks like it's going
And
to be.
I had seen it before. I had seen it when I was a kid, and as a kid, I knew this was bad. And no, it does not age well. It does not age well at all. We are talking about the children's film in high quotations, the Garbage Pail Kids. The Garbage Pail Kids came out August 21st, 1987, had a budget of $1 million, had a weekend opening of 661,512. It was number 17 its opening weekend, and had a finished box office of 1.57 million. Yeah, this movie. Brian, take it away.
So, I mean, the movie starts, and the first thing you see is a Topps trading card company movie. So already, you're in for something.
Oh yes. I was like, really?
Because obviously it's based on the trading cards that came out in the mid '80s, spoofing the Cabbage Patch doll craze. Now, I was a kid at the time, and I collected those stupid cards / stickers, whatever you want to call them, and I thought they were, funny because I was that age where they're making fun of their names and putting words like snot and poop in it. Oh, it's funny. Yeah, great. I was young. Give me a break. But then as this movie came out, I think I don't remember exactly where it was and thing, but I think this is one of those movies that came out like basically the craze had died and they still put this movie out. It's bad. I don't know where the money, whatever budget Sean said, I don't know where that money went, because the masks and animatronics they made to make the character talks clearly cost about $1.58, because the mouths barely move and they don't even match their saying, and it's just really ugly.
Their eyes are just kind of.
Mackenzie Aston, clearly the least successful of the Aston clan, son of John, brother of Sean. I think highlight of his career was when he was on the Facts of Life for a couple seasons there. But he's trying his best. I can't blame the kid. He was hired to do a job and he showed up and did it. Actually, he should get an Oscar for being able to act opposite these dolls, which are clearly just like little people in these really horrible suits. There's not a single joke in this movie that hits, whether it's them doing farting jokes for the 48th time, or the one character pisses his pants 6 different times. I think he counted. He started counting at some point.
No. It ended up only being 5. I said he needed to do it a 6th time to equal 10 minutes per pee in the film. And then he didn't do it. In the one moment of the film that he should have done it, he didn't do it.
They like to do that to us. They like to
like when the joke is supposed to happen, they don't like to deliver the joke. But yeah, you had the snot. You had the snot one who was snotting over everything. You had the barf one that didn't barf until the actual final part of the film.
The guy's an alligator.
Yeah, you had alligator.
Apparently sunglasses and a wig on him. People won't realize that he's an alligator
Who has a foot fetish. Because he likes to eat feet, or he likes to eat toes. Then you have Ford Fairlane in the film, Andrew Dice Clay, who clearly got his whole shtick from this character.
Apparently, because Sean
Sean
said that clearly trying to make fun of. Sean said it trying to make fun of Ford Fairlane, and I'm like, Ford Fairlane wasn't even until after this, so clearly they weren't spoofing Ford Fairlane. And he's like, well, then he got his act from this, and I mean, I'm not gonna lie, the character was.
You're like, no.
And then he'd say a joke and wait for him to go, oh.
I started to add the O's, and then you started to do it as well. I was like, see, I told you. What was the character? It was Greg Greaser or something like that?
Something like that. I didn't.
Greaser Greg.
I didn't care about the way to be remembering all the names. But so, I mean, the plot is we basically have this kid who, first of all, is in love with this girl who's clearly at least 5 years at least older than him. She has her own apartment, 14. So she's at least out of high school. She's living on her own in that apartment right next to where he works, where there's this weird thing in the mid 80s where little boys become best friends with older men and hang out with them all day, every day. And nobody seems to have a problem with this. You never see the kid's parents in this movie. He has
that
a
was the
home.
other thing. It was like, where does he live? Does he go to school?
He does go home at some points. He goes to his house and basically, I think, steals all his mom's groceries or something to bring to the kids. So I mean, there's that whole thing. But it's like it's just him hanging out with this guy who's like a magician, and it's just weird. They don't never explain how the magician ended up with this pail full of these things.
Captain Manzini.
He clearly knows, like, what's in this pail and that they're, all kinds of trouble, but we don't know why.
Oh, the pail's from outer space.
Well, the opening credits show the thing floating through space in the greatest effects ever. But how did he get it? How did he land on Earth? What happened? We don't know. Don't want to know. Don't really care. But the girl, this older girl who wants to be a fashion designer, treats him like shit. She basically sells clothes out of the trunk of her car to make money. And then at some point she decides to, I remember, because the
Garbage Pail Kids create an outfit for him.
He has the Garbage Pail Kids, apparently, who are these wonderful, seamstresses or whatever, tailors, because they can make stuff out of things they stole from a non-union sweatshop, which is labeled non-union sweatshop.
Non-union.
Not only is it labeled a sweatshop, it's just we're a non-union sweatshop, because those union sweatshops.
Oh god, what was the name of the bar?
It was the toughest bar in the world. Was the
toughest
name of the
bar in the world bar?
Just labeled toughest bar in the world. So basically, they make him in this outfit, which looks straight out of Michael Jackson, circa 1987. It's like it looks like a soldier's outfit, complete with the bars and awards and badges and things. She falls in love with it. She's like, "Oh, can you make me more outfits to sell?" And so basically, start employing these people to sell all these clothes for him. She's treating him completely like shit. But she basically uses the promise. Well, not the promise. The insinuation, and I'd be really appreciative, but trying to use sex basically. And this kid, I don't even know if he's at puberty yet. Who knows? But she treats him like shit, and only at the end does he decide, you know what, I don't love you anymore because you're not pretty on the inside.
He doesn't even say inside. He just says, I don't think you're
not pretty anymore. Yeah,
it's just like, it's supposed to be such a heartbreaking. And then don't forget her thugs. Yeah,
there's the bad guy, which is her boyfriend. His main thug, who's played by the son of the director. They all have like that whole 80s mullet thing going on. Who did you think he was at one point?
Oh God, who did I think he was?
He looked exactly like somebody else, but just because he had that same 80s mullet, he was dressed the same.
Oh, keep going. I'm gonna have to look it up. That's gonna bug me now.
But yeah, there's these three, and then there's like a female with them who looks like a bodybuilder at some point. At one point, they can't open up this sewer drain or something, which by the way had weird labels like City Zoo and I should remember what the other one said.
Oh man, yeah, it was like
all these weird label types.
City Zoo.
But they couldn't open toxic waste. One of them was labeled toxic waste.
Yeah.
But they couldn't do it, so they had the bodybuilder chick come over, and she did it, of course, instead. I don't remember all the specifics of this movie. I'm sure as you talk, I'll think of more things. But go ahead.
I'm literally looking at the guy, and for the life of me, I cannot remember who he reminds me of.
Yeah.
I did say that the kid or Aston looked like a young Jonathan Brandis. But yeah, and then let's not forget about the farting Garbage Pail Kid. But yeah, Brian kind of hit most of the plot points except for the big one.
We'll get to that.
Oh yeah, we'll get to that. But yeah, it's basically like Manzini. He doesn't even like the kid doesn't work for him. The kid just hangs out at his place. But then he starts like giving the kid like stuff to do, like chores to do. Like he's like maybe his surrogate father. But then like he's also the surrogate father to the Garbage Pail Kids because like he tells them what to do and like he treats them like they're his children. But he's constantly trying to get them back in the garbage pail by like trying to trick them in with music and like negotiations and shit like that. And they're all just, I mean, they're not supposed to be great actors. They're not supposed to, but it's just like they're annoying. And they just ramble on about shit, and it's just the same repetitive joke over and over again per Garbage Pail Kid. You had the weird baby one that just calls everyone mama. Yeah. You had the puker who just is like the biggest talker of the group. they're all just so unsettling to look at, which is the whole point. That's the whole point.
And then there's the musical number. They break out into
they have a
song.
random musical number.
Apparently, it's their happy working song. Their hi ho. I forget what it is, but it's essentially repeating the same line over and over again. I'm like, really, this is a musical? But luckily, that was, I think, the only song in the movie.
Well, there was the Garbage Pail song, but they didn't sing it.
They didn't sing that, no.
But if you literally, I think at one point we literally said, I think this whole film is being shot on like one block. Because everything was
feels very much like it was shot on one block, yeah.
But also, I don't know if you guys know about this, but Brian and I, just like the non-union sweatshop and the toughest bar in the world, do you know that there's a secret house for the ugly? Because this movie, apparently, in this world, there is a special home for the ugly.
It's a home for ugly, and they have like essentially dog catchers who go out and catch ugly people.
There's literally a scene where a little girl, they're playing hide and go seek, and the girl's wearing a Halloween mask, and she's counting, and these two cops or dog catcher, ugly catcher people guys come up and net her to capture her and take her away from her family and friends and all that shit. And then they realize that she's wearing a mask. He's like, well, you shouldn't wear ugly masks of ugly people. That's how you get taken to the ugly home. And then they just leave. It's like, can they do that?
If she had been ugly, you can just capture them and take them away, and your parents apparently won't care about them. So one of the whole plot points of the movie is that these garbage pail kids that we found in Captain Manzini's garbage pail or whatever in his shop, there's additional friends apparently that came to Earth with them, who they're trying to find out where they are, and he finds out, they were taken to the home for the ugly. So they're going to help.
Which also the captors inside the building is Santa for being too fat?
Too fat Santa, too skinny, which Abraham Lincoln.
It's gone. And then there was too bald. Gandhi. There was a clown, which was too weird.
Something like that.
And it was just all like I was like, this doesn't make you ugly. This is just descriptions of people.
But they don't show it's like this wall of cells. There's like about 8-9 people in these cells, and I'm like, is the whole building just housing these 9 ugly people? Is this all they've caught?
Oh, because it's really a warehouse. It's not.
But we only ever see those 9. So we're like, well, and then like, well, where are the other kids that they're looking for? And then in a scene where they finally are breaking them out, somebody asks about the other kids, and he's like, "Oh, you were too late. You know that garbage truck they just left in?" So they're implying, because Sean had made a joke earlier, like, what do they just execute him in there or something like that? And apparently that's what they do. If you're ugly, it's like a kill shelter. They'll just kill you. And
the whole plot device of this film is that Manzini and Dodger is Aspen's name of the film. They're supposed to help the Garbage Pail Kids, or Dodger anyway, at least, is supposed to help the Garbage Pail Kids find their friends, and then they'll make all the costumes for him and everything for him to hook up with the girl. So they find that they're obviously being stored there, and then we find out that I guess they're dead, and they never get brought up again. The Garbage Pail Kids never ask about their friends. It never gets brought up. Like there's literally at one point they start singing, we can help us find our friends, and they just nothing.
Because Captain Manzini tells Dodger, he's always, that garbage truck you saw, that was them, they're dead.
How the fuck do you know, Manzini?
The Garbage Pail Kids weren't there for that conversation, and they never asked about their friends, which is the whole point for them being at this place on this mission. Was to find these friends. So it's like, apparently they just didn't care about them anymore. But apparently the message of this movie is, if you're ugly, you deserve to die. So I guess there's that.
Yeah. You don't matter. You don't matter in society if you're ugly, apparently.
Not only don't matter, you deserve to die.
But even the girl who, granted, in terms of 80s, I guess she's attractive. She's got the big, floofy hair kind of thing. But it's like, for Dodger...
The worst fashion in the world, by the way, for somebody who wants to go into fashion.
And for Dodger to go, you're not pretty anymore, was supposed to be like a death note to her. Like, you don't matter to me as a person anymore because you're not pretty. And now, granted, he means on the inside because she's a horrible fucking human being. But it's one of those things like you can hear her heart, feel her heart breaking as he says that to her. It's like, he's a 14-year-old kid. Why the fuck do you care what he says? But the ridiculousness of her selling the clothes. She pulls up outside of a club, which I love that they leave the club door open because you're just seeing random people going,
do that white boy dance.
They're just, I'm like, Brian, look at the club, look at the club, look at the club. You see random people going, we're dancing for a movie, guys. It's great. And then just a bunch of girls who also not pretty girls are all surrounding her car, and they're just throwing like dollar bills.
We have to point out we're not sure how far they drove to this club because
every time
both times they went to this club, it was midday, bright sunlight, not evening, midday. Okay, let's go. Hop in the car. The car pulls up, dead of night. It's not like getting dark. It's well into the night. People are at the club, and like he says, the girls. She pulls up in the car, and they all come running out like, "Oh, that's the girl who sells clothes out of the trunk of her car. We have to all buy her clothes with our $1 bills."
Yeah, and it's all $1 bills, and like some of them, like Brian's like, I think she's made like $20. It's like, clearly, she's not making a profit off of this shit. And then like they did the whole fashion show, and then it's like the fashion show we're getting, like this is all plain clothes. Like this is anything.
It's like anything you'd see on the rack at Kmart or something.
It's like none of these clothes are special. Like none of these are the Garbage Pail Kids clothes or anything like that. And it's just like, and then like the Garbage Pail Kids like attack the fashion show at the end, and it's just like all a big brawl and stuff. And then just it ends, and like the 14-year-old kid attacks the boyfriend and has like a full-on fight. And then he wins the fight and then cries in front of everybody. And I'm just like, dude, you just lost all your cool cred because you're beating up the big guy. And then you just start crying and you run off crying with Manzine. I'm like, dude, you just lost all credibility right there. And yeah, it's just, and then like the Garbage Kids like run away at the end of the movie. Like they escape. And like that's how the movie ends, like them on their like Tonka trucks or little dune buggies and driving off into the night, and it's just like, okay, fuck it, sure, I guess that's the movie. It's just.
But the movie clearly centers around how well the actual Garbage Pail Kid. Because you don't care about the kid, his plot with the clothes, with the girl, with Captain Manzini. It's like the movie's supposed to be centered around these Garbage Pail Kids, and they're just so off-putting, not in the way they should be, but just the costumes are so horribly made and they look dumb.
There's no script.
The jokes they say aren't funny. It's a bunch of one-liners that my kid could have written in 10 minutes, and it's just like, oh my god.
That's what I'm saying. There's no script. There's a bare bones like bullet points, and then it's just letting these little people in these suits just kind of run around and like almost like on a stage going, here's your guys' motivation, go. And just let them go. One's jumping around. Some of them are playing cards. Another one's trying to get like there was a huge focus on the fucking TV at one point. Like they had to hide the TV, but then the TV ended up not working at all. Like they wasted way too much time on this TV at one point. Yeah. There's just everything about this film. Like obviously granted, like what did you expect? It's one of those things like, what did you guys expect this to be a good movie? Like, no, we didn't. But it's like we didn't expect it to be this bad.
Oh, that's why I watched the trailer, because I'm like, this was supposed to be a really horrible movie, but I'm not sure if it's stinker level. Let's check it out. And that's when we watched the trailer.
The trailer makes it look like a horror film. The trailer makes it look like a horror film. And like when they first come out, it feels like Chucky, because like they're popping out at in the antique store and shit. Not to mention like where the kid tries to start giving shit away in the antique store. Like we're like, you don't work there.
He's like, here, you want to keep these buttons? Because I want you to fuck me. Like what?
Yeah, it's just like, and then they just start all popping out, like and shit. And we're just like, are they gonna eat the kid? Like what's going on? And I'm like, oh no, we're just gonna be cool and everything. But then they like go and like keep trying to like eat people, or alligator keeps trying to go bite people and shit.
Alligator, get it?
Alligator, because he's the leader of the group apparently, according to Manzini. But yes, if you want to watch this, why? First off, if you want to see where Andrew Dice Clay got his motivation as a comedian, you can see it here because Greaser Greg is totally Andrew Dice Clay. Yeah, there's no reason to watch this film. It really isn't. We got to the halfway point of the year, and granted, we watched some stinkers. But in the past, like, month, man, we have, like, obliterated the stinkers that we watched in the first half of this year. Between this and Megaforce and, oh, crap, what was it last week or 2 weeks ago? Help me. What was it? Like a couple weeks back. It was like hands down the worst one. Oh man. But I mean these stinkers lately have just been Oh, the Avengers and
Oh, that was bad. The Teddy Bear suits.
well, Rise of Cobra. I don't necessarily hate. Like it's not good, but I mean, um, but yeah, like the stinkers have really been kicked up a notch. Oh, Superman 4.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah. This is last
Superman
half of
4,
the year.
Cause the
Stinkers have been-
Revenge. We actually didn't hate Meet Dave, and then Tammy, and then Megaforce. Yeah, we've really have been kicking it up a notch in terms of the stinker levels. But yeah, anything else you want to add with Garbage Pail Kids?
I think we've spent too much time on it already.
Yeah,
Honestly.
avoid it at all costs. Don't do it. If you want to know what the movie is about, watch the trailer. And if you still want to watch this movie after you watch the trailer, then you're us.
You can go out and buy the Shout Factory special edition Blu-ray they put out, limited edition.
Just go out there, guys, and support Topps Chewing Gum Company because they need the money.
Yeah,
But anyway, that's our show, guys. Like I said, it was a weird show. It's one of those that's like on paper, it looked like it was going to be a fun show, but no, we had a lot of bad movies this week. But yeah, we hope you guys enjoyed the episode. If you guys did, go and hit that like, share, and subscribe button to the channel so you guys stay up to date with all the latest videos pop up on the Movie Crusaders. Of course, I'm going to follow us on all the social media outlets you see below. Coming up next, Reminiscence got released today on HBO Max and theaters, so I'll probably have a review of that because I'll probably watch it on HBO Max. So we'll have that.
The Protege came out.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to check that one out. I still have not seen Don't Breathe 2 yet. I'm still not really planning on seeing it.
I enjoyed it.
So you went and saw it?
I went and saw it.
Is it a sequel or a prequel?
It is a sequel.
Then that makes me not want to watch it even more because that makes no fucking sense for it to be a sequel.
I will just say this the super short version. Don't Breathe, I said in my review, relies on the idea, convincing the audience there's always somebody worse out there. Like the first one, you had like the kids were like, thieves and intruders, but hey, at least they didn't, kidnap people and try to forcibly impregnate them. In this movie, you got the guy who was the kidnapper, who obviously he's just trying to live on his own, just trying to live his life now. But hey, now there's just the other people who are doing even worse stuff. So it's like, and he's trying to protect the little girl. So I mean, you do have to get past the whole idea of like he's not a good character, but just as a thriller, I enjoyed it.
My review for Free Guy is up. It was hands down one of my favorite films of the year. Brian, you saw it as well. What were your quick thoughts on Free Guy?
I love Free Guy a lot. I mean, I thought I would enjoy it because it looked, it's Ryan Reynolds. It looked kind of funny, but the previews didn't blow me away. But in the end, I love that movie. It's one of my favorites of the year. Not my number one quite, but it's close so far.
So yes, highly recommend Free Guy from both of us. Next week's episode of the Week in Crusaders is a very, very special episode, everyone. This is a episode that we have had circled on our calendar since we started this show. Literally in January, when we first started to figure out this show, we marked down this next week as we're so doing this, right? Now, we changed it a little bit. We were going to do one specific thing, and then we're like, no, let's double down, triple down, quadruple down. Let's fifth time down this thing. So next week's a very, very special episode. And let's put it this way. Next week's episode is so special that we're going to take a week off after that week because we need a week to kind of decompress it. So
and there's nothing came out that week. So
there's nothing. that was honestly the real reason is we looked at like the first week of September. It's like, I don't want to talk about any of these fucking films. So you're like, I don't want to either. Week off, great, cool, week off. So then we did this to ourselves next week. So be on the lookout for next week's episode. It is going to be a doozy. But until next time, my name's Sean Wasserkrug. That is Brian Michaels. We are the Weekend Crusaders. And in case we don't see you, good morning, good afternoon, and good night, Weekend Crusaders.
You're still here? It's over. Go home.